All right, it's been a political year marred by the citizenship crisis, the divisive marriage equality debate and constant leadership speculation. And today, Canberra brought them all together.
The PM's good news.
For same-sex couples in Australia, you are equal, you are respected, you are loved. I commend the bill to the House.
After a forced week off, MPs finally got on with the job of debating the marriage equality bill. And Liberal MP Tim Wilson really got into the spirit of things.
Ryan Patrick Bolger, will you marry me?
Should let Hansard note to record that that was a yes, a resounding yes.
But he's not the only one celebrating. After a thumping by-election win over the weekend, Barnaby Joyce is heading back to Canberra.
We're getting the band back together.
In other good news for the PM, he may yet claim some Labor scalps after tomorrow's deadline to disclose the family tree. And he's on the attack over Labor's links to Chinese businessman Huang Zhangmo.
The Leader of the Opposition should not easily forget Mr Wang because he visited him at his house last year. So he has a very good familiarity with the gentleman.
And now the PM's bad news. Even with a tiny bump in approval ratings, the government would still lose if an election was held today. New South Wales Nationals leader John Barilaro stood by his calls for the Prime Minister to quit.
What I said Friday stands.
In Bennelong, polls show Kristina Keneally neck and neck with John Alexander, so there's still a good chance the Libs could lose a crucial seat.
I feel you're stalking me already.
I'm not. It's been a big year for the PM, and with just 3 more sleeps till summer holidays, will it be the good news or the bad news he remembers most?
And the very newly engaged Tim Wilson joins us from Canberra. Tim, we'll get to the politics in a second, but first, congratulations. Huge day for you and Ryan, I'm sure. You've screwed it for the rest of us because proposing Hansard is not something we can all do. But how long have you been planning that?
Well, I've been writing my speech over the past couple of days, and Ryan didn't know it was coming, but in the end, you get to the end of your speech, you thank people. I thank the people of Goldstein, my electorate. I thanked the Australian community and lots of friends. But, of course, I had to pay tribute to Ryan. And in the end, I just couldn't think of another better way to finish it than to, make it clear what the point of this whole debate has actually been about, which is about encouraging people to enter into committed unions and relationships, and that's where it came from.
I'm not sure why Waleed's worried because he's already married. This is something we don't know about. Well, but Tim, how soon before you think you'll get to tie the knot?
I don't know, probably sometime early next year. It won't be my decision. Look, I know my place in our relationship. My job is to run around the country and be a parliamentarian. The trade-off is that Ryan gets to make all the critical decisions like this.
Congratulations from me, Tim, but...
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
But
bring it on.
Given it's such a personal thing, a marriage proposal, wouldn't you have rather have done that in private rather than a stunt in Parliament?
Well, firstly, it wasn't a stunt. It was actually thanking my partner. And look, I've had a couple of people say this to me, and I don't know if you missed it, Steve. We spent $100 million and about 9 weeks of a public vote discussing whether I might have the right to be able to put those words out. And so I think it's actually pretty extraordinary that people think that somehow my relationship is suddenly private when, say, for instance, you've just had a public vote on it. The reality is the Parliament has gone down this path. They have made my relationship extremely public, and now is to send a very clear message. Firstly, obviously, that I want to honour the outcome, but in addition to that, to send a message to the rest of Australia that this is the change that you have voted for, and this is what couples are now going to do, and part of my role as a Member of Parliament is to be part of the leading of that change.
Fair enough.
Tim, the citizenship saga is not over. Kathy Gallagher, of course, today. And there's one that's come up where Doug Cameron may potentially be eligible for Lithuanian citizenship. Now, for those who may be not aware of Doug Cameron's work, let's have a listen to Doug Cameron here.
What a rabble of a government. What a weak-kneed, jelly-backed leader we have in Malcolm Turnbull.
I mean, he sounds Lithuanian to me, mate.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously we've got the closing of the register, I think it is tomorrow morning, where everybody has to say where their parents and grandparents and spouse has been married. Married spouse, mind you, married spouse only, but I've included my spouse's details regardless, so that the press can trawl through it all. There's obviously going to be some people who may have been trying to keep it under the lid, who may be exposed. We're just going to have to wait and see. But from what I understand, the Prime Minister said yesterday, he's very optimistic and confident that all the Liberals have done the right thing. They've self-referred to the High Court, if there's been any doubt, or they've resigned. The question is why Bill Shorten is actually protecting so many of his colleagues when it does seem like there are a lot who have things to answer for in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and we're hoping to get to the bottom of that tomorrow.
Just finally, Tim, you've gone very hard on Labor and their relationship with the Chinese businessman, Mr Huang. Pretty embarrassing today for the Liberal Party, isn't it, to see that Mr Huang's deputy, one of his spokesmen, is now working with John Alexander out in Bennelong?
No, well, that's a mischaracterisation. The bloke that you're referring to is somebody who used to work with Mr Huang. He resigned. He's now a private citizen. He's gone to join a political campaign. He's exercising his civil rights as an Australian, and he should be free to do so. Versus, say, for instance, the example of Sam Dastyari, who apparently was aware of the fact that his contact, his phone, his home was bugged, and dissuaded having conversations in those places in case it was recorded and jeopardised our national security. And I just can't get over the fact that the opposition has been prepared to tolerate that and let Sam Dastyari stay in the Parliament.
Hey, whoa. They can't kick him out of the Parliament, Tim.
No, they can't.
They don't have that power.
They can actually make a decision about whether they should support him to do so. They can make a decision about whether he should be kicked out of the Australian Labor Party. And the choice before them is to say, are they going to put Australia first? Are they going to put national security first? Or are they going to tolerate senators potentially under